Welcome back to the flip side, one and all. The current time is 12:12 p.m. and yes, there is a reason behind me beginning this video or this recording at that hour or time. Okay? If you want to look up that so-called angel number of 1212, by all means, be my guest, and maybe you might realize a little bit more. Now, basically, what I am doing is picking up on topics of conversation and discussions from, 3 years ago, give or take. 2, 3 years ago, I'm not sure. But anyways, during a certain point of this channel's history, there was a time to where I was interacting quite heavily with another channel in regards to dimensions and dimensional beings, okay? And this was through the channel and the channel creator, Teresa, from the channel I Am Teresa. I don't know if she's changed her channel name by now or not, I'm not sure. Or if she's even putting content out there. I do miss Teresa though. She's a good gal. We had, we had quite the exchanges and interactions on this platform as well as through emails. And so I am coming back around to that topic of interest, if you will, because I have noticed something over this period of time. You know, when it comes down to narratives, especially narratives that's added to creators' content, such as explanations, whether through Encyclopedia Britannica or now Wikipedia, these narratives are, well, they just need to vanish and go away. Okay? Why? Because these are only applied when evidences and proofs are presented, such as chemtrailing and the narrative information banners that they like to put below. Well, we cannot say randomly picked videos, right? Because these are attacks against our narratives in comparison to theirs. And when, such as in much of my content, to where I show these aircraft that have these contrails being expelled from behind them in many different and various sizes and shapes and forms. Now many want to claim that this is aerosol injections that's being taken place. It really doesn't matter, does it? Because the narratives still does not change. But the narratives are only directed to those proofs and evidences as they are shown and shared. And basically, they get shadow banned. Okay? But furthermore, when it comes down to, and once again, you know, I show more than just contrails, because when you see the so-called exhaust vapors or the contrail just disappear, but yet you still see the aircraft flying along, but no longer is there any kind of a trail being emitted, then you know that those little information banners are misinformation, disinformation, and highly false. So now we come to another narrative that I have been noticing of late because of all of this drone, UAP, UFO talk. Because now we are going into where many people are talking about interdimensional beings and interdimensional crafts and interdimensional places. And now, oh, there's information banners being placed on that narrative. Or, or any creator that comes out with a narrative, if they mention anything involving interdimensional, boom, you get that banner applied. So let's go ahead and go a little bit further into dimensions and narratives. Programmed narratives as far as dimensions. Maybe I'll surprise you here or there with a couple of tidbits of my opinionated information. Let's jump right on it. Okay, what you see right before you is just a piece of plain white typing paper. Okay? Oh, typing paper. What is typing? What is typing paper? What? Well, if you're too young to understand that, well, too bad. Let's go ahead and go into dimensions. Because if you do your little bit of research, and little bit is all it takes, is when you can go ahead and do a little search on, let's just say, the first 5 dimensions. And what do you come up with? Well, basically what you were taught or programmed in school. Now, please be mindful, I am not an artist, okay? But I'm going to attempt to do my best. So, according to the narratives, your first dimension is basically, and I'm going to use a little template here, because once again, I am not an artist per se, but so the first dimension indicates length, and that indicator basically is just a straight line. Okay, and yeah, I know, so it's not all that straight, but Okay, so this basically is your first dimension. Okay, and that of being length. Okay, so let's go ahead. And, well, I can't write like this, but anyway, so equals length. Okay, so your second dimension, which is kind of strange because they say straight line, and if you draw a straight line, typically you're going right to left, left to right, whatever, right? So anyways, so we're going this route here. So your second dimension is that of width, okay? In which, well, if you go with the crosshair, okay, let's go ahead and go crosshairs. Basically, this is now your second dimension, okay? So, what is your third dimension? Now, this is, once again, kind of crazy because this is not, adding up to, the definitions so far, right? Unless I was to reincorporate this and to where I would have started off with width and then length. But as far as this second dimension here, they also claim that this is in the form of, see if I can do this while looking through my screen. This is very difficult to do so. Okay, basically a box, right, or a square. Okay, that falls into the definition of the second dimension. Okay? The third dimension is height. So you have length, width, and height. We might as well go ahead and, we'll just go wide. Okay, so how do they claim that we see the third dimension? Well, basically, you're going to take this right here, okay? But you're going to go at the ends of those lines, right? And you're going to connect, once again, to make a box, but you are going to create another one, okay? And add your lines. And there you have a three-dimensional box. Yeah, if you can see it. Not very good. Okay, I'm just trying to rush through this. Okay, I could come out with this much better. Okay, so yeah, let's go ahead and do that just a little bit better. I'm pausing this. Okay, so basically there's your 3D box. Of course, there's another line that can be implemented right there, to give a more of an illusion, if you will. Okay, now then, before we go on any further into the fourth and fifth dimension, I want to explain that all of this is great if you're an artist, or for drawings, or if you're one that constructs blueprints. Yeah, all this is fine. But in the real world, what are these dimensions actually? Okay? And we're going to go ahead and take in a little bit of religious aspects over all this. Are you ready for this? Okay, furthermore, something else that I just, boy, is that like blurred out or what? Anyways, so I would just like to explain just a little bit further pertaining to this. This is basically I should say, this is your basic fundamentals towards geometry, okay? So just remember that, geometry. And real quick, before we go any further, I will go ahead and clarify the narratives over the fourth and fifth dimension, okay? Basically, the narrative over the fourth dimension is time, okay? And which some also place space in with time, okay? Time and space, the space-time continuum and all that good stuff, right? Yeah. We'll veer away from all that because I've got my own narratives, right? Okay, so the fifth dimension. What is the fifth dimension? Well, it is defined as basically variables, okay? Such as entanglements or just information. Yeah, the 5D, information. And that of additional spatial dimensions or added dimensional spaces. Okay? Now let's really get gritty here, because this is not how I view dimensions. Like I said, it's okay for on paper, but then again, you have to consider a few factors over the realities of these narratives. Okay, let's go ahead and refute some of these narratives as I've just described. So once again, we have a blank piece of paper. Is there anything there? If The first dimension is indicated as a line of length. Where's the line? Does it just magically appear? Much like width in the second dimension? Does it really take two dimensions, 1 and 2, added together to make 3? So that you have length, width, and height? Once again, it's all fine and dandy on paper. Let's go ahead and go into the metaphysical thought processes of dimensions. The first dimension, right here. This is the first dimension. This is the second dimension. Out of the darkness comes the light. Right? And anything that comes afterwards becomes materialized. And without light, you can't see anything. What's it say in this good book here? Genesis. And even though this has gone through the Mandela effect and all that, we have a lot of blurred out words. Anyways, come on, focus. There we go. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and blah, blah, blah. Okay? Our first dimension is darkness. Our second dimension is light. There is no form in darkness, and there is no form in light. Okay? Light is of the second dimension. It cannot be touched. It can be seen, but it cannot be touched. Okay? That is the second dimension. Through that came the third dimension, which is our dimension, and everything within it being 3D, right? Height, width, and depth. All three in combination makes up, beyond this here, this is two-dimensional, right? Because we cannot see this without light, and this here is two-dimensional viewing, much like my drawings here are two-dimensional. I have made a 3D illustration. Is it in reality three-dimensional? No, it is not. It is two-dimensional. Okay? Are you getting it? Okay, so going into their definition or their narrative of fourth dimension being that of time, once again, can time be touched? It can be experienced, but it is not three-dimensional. So how can time be within the fourth dimension? Yeah, think about that one. And the fifth dimension, once again, Well, let's just go ahead and claim that as spiritual because they want to claim information and additional dimensions. All of this is theoretical. None of this is tangible evidence. Nothing can be grasped physically except for the 3D. Now then, we're told that the paper is only two-dimensional. So how can anything be three-dimensional on paper? Okay, now then, quite a few years back, there was these posters being made, as well as, flyers and pamphlets that had these 5D images on them that you had to stare into in order to see the picture through all the chaos of colors and shapes that your eyes are first visually greeted with. And and until you are told, hey, there's something more there, but you have to focus in, you have to adjust your eyes to see this. Okay? This is where interdimensional aspects come into play. And this is what I have tried to show you people. Because your interdimensional basically is within your 2D realm. Have you guys seen pareidolia? That is two-dimensional. It is not three-dimensional. But on the same note, it can also be viewed as being within that fifth dimension. But yet, this so-called pareidolia of, the images that I've caught right out here in the tree line of ghosts, tree spirits, dryads, if you will. Well, of course, the dryads appear 3D because they are of the trees, which trees are 3D. Are you confused? Good. Because confusion promotes thought. Keep thinking. So getting back to this, it basically describes those dimensions. But nobody's really looked at those words of darkness, light, and then what follows after that as far as the creations. People are not looking at it as dimensional factors. Geometry, Freemasons, so once you start to understand or read between the lines of what I'm trying to say here, because I don't have the language skills to really promote my thoughts as I'd like to present them. But maybe, I've given enough to have you ponder some thoughts. Because all in all, there's, like I said, we are in the time, or actually in the year of the snake, right? A lot of double talked, which is indicated by the snake's forked tongue. This is why you have to get away from the mainstream narratives of today and think for yourselves and see things for yourselves, regardless of what dimensional properties might be incorporated. This is why I have an observation channel. This is, this is what has promoted me onto, well, what is known as the fifth dimension, but yet I don't see it as that. I see it as the fourth dimension. Because why? Time is not really a factor when you understand that we're caught in a time loop. And so, the only two dimensional factors within this narrative here is those directly connected, the third and fifth dimensions. We are of the third, we are trying to see into that so-called fifth dimension. But once again, I view it as being the fourth dimension, according to my tabulations, if you will, and summarizations. It's difficult to really express my thoughts within areas like this to make any kind of sense. But if you can make sense out of this, hey, let me know. Throw in your little narratives in comment form if you'd like. I'd like to hear about this from you. It's time for me to go into a different dimension. So I shall leave you with this. And we'll call it good. Remember, light is enlightenment. Through enlightenment, well, is that equally unattainable and highly misunderstood factors of love, universal love. And it's through universal love that I present this stuff to you for enlightenment. And I'm learning right along with you. So if you have anything of value, lesser, greater, or equal than, please throw it in the comments. I'd like to hear from you. Until next time, take care. And we'll see you once again on this flip side of reality, regardless of what dimension it might be in. And watch out for those false narratives. I'm not trying to provide any narrative here. I'm just trying to provide more fodder for thought. Have a great one.